there was a button that was basically a programmable button that you could program it to do different things. And I was like, that reminded me of those old Staples commercials with the easy button. So I was like, for those instructors that need that easy button, just
Aaron, I think I got you covered somewhere in here too. I got that easy button.
That's what, yeah.
Nice.
There it is.
Now how much is it?
$92.50.
Can I put some back?
The easy button can save you lots of money, but only at Staples.
On this episode, we discuss smart tech, bright lies, and AI promises. All that and more on EdTech. EdTech episode 126, separating tech hype from higher ed reality. Hello, AV friends. Welcome to another episode of EdTech. As always, we have our panel of awesome higher ed AV professionals. Ernie Bailey.
Hello, Aaron. I'm glad to be back again.
Yeah, awesome. And we have Rob Rasberry.
Hey, is it too late to say Happy New Year? But it's great to be here.
Never too late. Never too late. And of course, Scott Tyner.
Hi, everyone. Always glad to join.
And today's special guest joining us for this episode is Joe Sokolowski, aka Soko from Sacred Heart University.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome, Joe. And so tell everyone a little bit about what you do over there.
Sure. So I'm the manager of audiovisual operations at Sacred Heart and manage about 340 spaces of tech, about 150 of those classrooms, and then all the other fun stuff we get to deal with.
Right, yes, because we tend to wear many hats in higher ed AV.
Absolutely.
Let's jump right into the articles we read this week. The first conversation today, it'll be inspired by TheVerge.com's coverage of the Consumer Electronics Show, or CES. It's one of the largest and buzziest tech events of the year, offering a first look at next-gen TVs, laptops, smart home gadgets, cars, and more. So in 2025, the event was held in Vegas in January 7th to the 10th. So, we tend to think that commercial, we're all about pro gear and whatnot. But sometimes things will start in the consumer kind of realm and make their way to the professional. Was there anything that came out, during the show that looks like it might end up on our campuses?
I wish that I didn't work in higher ed because I wish that I could go to CES, but it's so wildly expensive that I don't know, unless you're local, I don't know how anybody in higher ed could go. But I always think there's some interesting things that are there because we know the consumer stuff, particularly in higher ed, is going to be brought in by the students, and we're going to end up looking at it. A couple of things that stuck out to me this year were the smart glasses. I think we've probably talked about smart glasses before, but there's a set of Roku glasses that actually have a screen built in, and they're doing live captioning, live translation. And I think of you take that and you pair it with AirPods, and so what Apple is doing with AirPods and being able to focus on who you're speaking to. I think there's some great accessibility options that are going to we're going to start seeing in our classrooms. And then the other one for me is Lenovo put out the rolls right off your tongue, the ThinkBook Plus Gen 6, which has a rolling OLED screen. The press of a button goes from 14 inches to 16.7, I believe. The laptop in itself, I'm like, whatever, big deal. It gets 2 inches higher, which actually just screws up your resolution. But the concept that we actually now have these that exist, that we're going to put in people's hands, that these screens are out there being used, I think is exciting for some opportunities that we might start seeing that come into our work.
To piggyback off that, I mean, it's really cool. One of the things that I like is funky displays. So like at InfoComm, we had those displays that moved, but to have the ability to have a rolling OLED screen actually in a consumer product, so that means it should hopefully trickle to us pretty soon. That would be awesome. But in a related thing, the LG Cinebeam ultra short throw projector. I mean, we're in a world of flat panels now, but I still like my projectors. And to do something funky, to put a light up that looks like this weird bell light that can also do projection and RGB lighting, that would be really cool. And like some like funky spaces, student spaces like that, just to kind of do something different. I saw a couple other things I thought were pretty cool, if I can throw those out.
Absolutely.
VLC, subtitle generation, I believe it was AI powered. That is awesome. I know a bunch of services that have offered that in the past. And to have a piece of freeware that not only empowers schools that have the money to pay for that stuff, because we all know the schools that do and the schools that don't, but it really kind of democratizes that technology. That was cool. Brighter OLEDs, always good. That's going to trickle into us. New signage, new opportunities for that, new ways to kind of stick TVs on walls. That's funky, but cool. And then two other really quick ones. Flint is a company doing paper-based batteries. So I know something that we have in a bunch of our stuff is batteries, and it's not recyclable. They're really bad for a bunch of stuff. But paper-based batteries that are compostable, that's pretty cool. And then there's a funky one called Hive that had a it was designed for people to get their Amazon packages not stolen. But I think of that as, hey, can I stick this in the building that's, a few miles away, put something in for a professor, and then say, go over to this box, press in a couple of, digits on a code or use an app, and then you can pick up that microphone instead of me sending a student to wait for you and say, here's your microphone. And then they could just pick it up, drop it off when they're done, something like that I think could be pretty cool too. And kind of an odd use of that tech.
Go off of Scott's rolling screen. I like that. And I go back to, I was part of at that time it was Infocom, now to VIXA. We had a little think tank, I guess it was, for AV and higher ed. It would have been probably put in this group, except this was back in, would have been 2002. Planes had just started flying again after 9/11. And we had an international group coming in. It was a challenge getting everyone there. So I don't remember when it was. But one of the things we talked about was that, what do you think you're going to see in 20 years? So we're just past that. But one thing that we discussed a lot was that when you hit the switch on your daylight or Draper screen and dropped it down, that was the entire display. It rolled down and that was it. So didn't quite make it in 20 years, but I think maybe by 30 years we'll be there. So it's fun to see things like that start coming around that you talked about. And, this is where I would like to see technology in 20 years or whatever. This is what I think we'll be seeing. So that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that laptop, Scott.
Yeah, I'm going to go way left on this, something that's sort of bizarre. I noticed the smart rings, and that was sort of fascinating to me. And one of the things that we all run into when we're running in and troubleshooting a classroom or in the beginning is, instructors doing attendance and, using a barcode or something like that. And I know it's getting a little Big Brother-ish, but what happens if the students agree to put a ring or add something onto the phone? As soon as they walk in or even proximity, it registers them as attending the class. So that's my contribution.
Rob, something we have looked at in the past and some products that Crestron had at one point, they called Ping, and you could actually set that up and it worked as proximity control for an instructor's phone. So when the instructor walked in, we could load up their favorite settings on the touch panel. We weren't at that point where we could talk to the computer until it called up their PowerPoint. But I think we're getting to that point, and I think the ring might be a good use for something like that.
Ernie, if you want, I think I got one of those right in one of these white boxes right here. If you want it, you want to play with it again, it's right there. I got you.
Yeah, there were a couple of things about like more like a personal sized monitor, like easy to, which I thought could be nice for for students with accessibility issues potentially, to like that they can have their own monitor, but like a little bit easier to transport kind of thing. And then one of the funny things that I thought there was a button that was basically a programmable button that you could program it to do different things. And I was like, that reminded me of those old Staples commercials with the easy button. So I was like, for those instructors that need that easy button, just get them, put one of those in their classroom and be like, okay, here, you just press that button. But yeah, we have the one touch studio kind of things and stuff, but it'd be funny to have your one little button.
Aaron, I think I got you covered somewhere in here too. I got that easy button.
That's what, yeah.
Nice.
There it is.
So, while we're talking about this, other than like an Infocom or CES, where should higher ed folks be looking for the next new tech?
Something you brought up with the accessibility. I mean, I don't know if you guys heard about it, but the AirPods, I guess, are certified as a hearing aid now.
Yes.
And the concept of that, especially, we're not going to talk about healthcare or anything like that, I guess, but not a bad thing to start. But the accessibility of $250 really good quality hearing aids, that's cool. So where? It's coming from everywhere, And they're not waiting for CES like they used to. Stuff's coming out, in random time.
Yeah, I actually tend to be more and more interested in some of the conferences that we wouldn't normally think of as AV conferences. I mean, CES is half and half, right? But even I think we'll talk a minute about Ignite. Microsoft put on Ignite this year, which I think is fantastic. I think in time, what Joe just said about Apple and watching the Worldwide Developers Conference and these things that we normally would consider a little bit out of our realm are the places that I really pay attention to because they're the things I would miss, right? I'm going to get all the info from Infocom. I'm going to get all the info from ISC. That's just part of what I do every day. So these I have to make an effort to take a look at, but they often pay off.
And you'll see them at Infocom or ISC in 3 years, after they've been vetted, I guess, by the consumer market and proven to be a viable tool. Then we'll see it come out in a little bit sturdier case.
Well, our second article was written by our own Scott Tyner, and it can be found over on Rave Pubs, how Microsoft Ignite 2024 showed AI's transformative power for AV and beyond. And so what does AI look like on our campuses right now? Where do you see it going?
Well, I was just in a meeting about that, a presentation by our new director of AI on our campus in our academic affairs office. She's been here on faculty for a long time, but a year ago, if you saw AI, our IT security site immediately blocked it. And now we have how can we use this in research and in healthcare and in education? So we're using it across the campus. We're already funded for our second annual conference in October. It's amazing, and where all it's coming in. I think Scott's article does a good job of describing it. I've been playing with it some for how to teach my staff some basics in AV and what can we do, as well as we're looking at it for helping instructors develop courses. We did a little demonstration for our faculty leadership in our teaching and learning support meeting. What we call it is basically using instructional technology in the classrooms and the interface between IV, academic affairs, and the faculty. But one of the guys said, just typed in to our learning management system, create a course on introduction to audiology. The chairman of audiology was in there and said, looked at it, just scrolled through it real quick, 30 seconds after he said to do that, and they said, I could use this. It would require some tweaking, but that was 6 months worth of work that just did in half a minute. I mean, it had pictures, it had titles, and it had questions for quizzes.
Right.
Just like that. And it was accurate. And, it was one of those that when you started out, you said, what level is this? And we said, postgraduate course entry level. So your first class in audiology after you've got your, at least have your bachelor's degree, possibly a master's degree in something, and you're trying to advance your audiology, and it put it at the right level according to the department chair.
On a relative one, if I can jump in, have you seen Notebook LM? So Google's Notebook LM. Scott, you've seen it. So
Yeah.
I'm outing my son a little bit. So I have a son who's in college, and he was just excited about it. Came down. We were talking about it yesterday, and I hadn't seen it. So it's your documents. So you put in your documents from your class, and you say, "Hey, summarize this. Make this a 2-page, summary on these points. What are the things I need to study? What are the things I need to do?" And it generates all that stuff. But something that was really funky that I saw was it can generate a podcast with multiple people talking about the source material that you upload to it. Yes, I don't think we're out of a job yet. I don't think you're
I
out
was
of a
going
job
to say,
yet. But
don't take the hosting gig away from me yet. AI, come on.
for people that aren't great about, sitting and reading, which I am certainly not, and my son isn't either, it gives you an opportunity to, if you have a nice long drive, have 2 people talk about this source material, specifically what you have. Just you literally drop in the PDFs, and they will have a conversation about the material that you uploaded. And it's just another way to kind of mobilize that information for people that are alternative learners that can't sit there and just read a book and retain, that need to kind of, absorb that in a different way. So that's really powerful. I have a couple more on AI. I feel like I'm chatting too much, but I'm hoping that I can use Copilot or Microsoft, not Microsoft, Notebook LM to write a construction doc, Div 27, that I, for once, won't miss something. Something that can actually take in the 1,200 page construction document for a new building that we're building, actually correlate, the electrical and the construction and the, mechanical and all that fun stuff. And I won't have missed, something on page 1,200 because I'm not as good as an AI, or at least it can help me. So that's one thing I'm looking to do. And then use it to write better standards docs, to understand deeply into protocols, so that when we give out a standards doc to a vendor, it can kind of hit those points and then use AI to jump back in and, hey, I missed this last time. We missed this last time. Add some more points for that to get that production out. Because, I don't know about you guys, but we could certainly use a few more staff members, and not everyone understands the finer points of construction.
No, that makes me think about being able to give AI 3 quotes and be like, compare these 3, or bid documents, and be like, which one do you think I should pick? Which one's missing something? Because it's so hard to go through documents and then be like, line by line, who put, somebody's forgetting something, and maybe we'll lower the number of change orders that
I got a trick for
happen.
You. I have a really good Excel document that we actually deliver to the vendors, and they're to spec back into that Excel document so we can take it, compare and contrast across. I'll send it to you later.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? And this is, I think, for me, where AI, I keep having these revelations about it. And I think it started out so silly, write a song like a pirate, blah. And so it took us all a little while, I think, to figure out what it can do for us. And so I regularly will take spreadsheet and upload it into ChatGPT and say, do this or that. Could I sit in Excel and do a formula? Yeah. But then I'd go, the VLOOKUP and which one? And literally, as long as it takes me to upload that spreadsheet and tell it what I want it to do, it's reported. I did one the other day where, short story is, we had a bunch of duplicates in our inventory system, and somebody could have sat there for hours finding those duplicates. But I literally uploaded 2 documents, said, ChatGPT, give me a spreadsheet of all the duplicates. And it just listed in 2 minutes. It made it so much faster. And Aaron, you can do, I imagine you can do exactly what you just said. You know,
Yeah.
give me an executive summary of the difference of these three things. So I think it's exciting, not just because the power of it, but I think people are starting to see that it's not taking away our jobs. It's doing what we need, which is doing things faster and quicker and giving us the information we really need to make decisions. And I think for me, Ignite was all about this, like it, and I think we've even seen this in higher ed. It's not, oh, we'll keep thinking about AI. It's no, AI is just going on, and that is Microsoft's focus. Everything is AI. They need to find a better naming pattern because everything's Copilot, which is insane. But it's shocking to me how much that has moved along, and what people hear. We have professors who essentially upload their entire course into their own chat GPT and say, here's your tutor, students. It's not going to hallucinate. It's going to find an answer in something that you're going to learn this year. So it's got all kinds of possibilities.
No, I think that the other thing too is, we have a lot of, going back on that, we have a lot of hats. It allows us technologists to be more creative, to say, I want to do this and I want to do that versus, going into the code, going to the spec, going into the standard and figuring out, can this do this and this and that? And what about this? Like, just say, I want this to do that. And then you get something pop out that you could be actionable on quickly. It's pretty cool. And then allows us to kind of, speed through a process to build something better. It's cool. It'd be pretty cool.
And I love that that instructors are starting to, I think, to embrace it. I think now that they understand what can be done and don't necessarily think of it as cheating or like just misuse of technology or whatnot, or taking the shortcuts. It really is like a way or a tool essentially for faculty or even students to take material and turn it into something that's more digestible, because everybody, all students learn a little differently. And so if you can easily use AI to make a course, it's the same content essentially that you're going to that for every student, but it's presented in a little different way that might sink in for those students a little bit more, and we'll have some better learning outcomes, and hopefully for that'll be better for those students who may have just kind of called it quits early because they were like, well, I can't do this, I'm not going to be able to learn this, but it's just because they were being taught it in a certain way that they just couldn't grasp onto. So it's exciting.
Cool way to think about it.
Well, okay. This next one is an AVNation article. Epson settles projector brightness lawsuit. They essentially, there is a company that's just not using, a correct white brightness specification. So how do we feel about this? Like, are these specs and stats really all that important to get right? Or is this of value?
Well, I think we need them to be accurate and consistent across the board. Basically, I mean, if you're going to start using AI, say, find me the best projector to work in this room, and the specs are skewed by the manufacturer, you're not, I mean, AI is not going to figure that one out. They're not going to know, it's not going to know they didn't use the ISO standard. But, I have always been skeptical about some of the manufacturers using the proper standards. So if I'm looking for a new projector, especially if I'm going to buy, 40 or 50 of them to go into classrooms at the same time, I'm going to get one in. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up against one that I've got that is the proper brightness and how does it look. And then we're going to turn off the lights and put up the proper test patterns and take a light meter to it and make sure it's close to, I can't guarantee I'm going to perfectly match the situation that it needs to get the proper reading, but I'm going to get close, and I can use the same comparison against multiple projectors. But I still would like to know that, if it says it's a 4,000 or a 6,000 lumen projector, it's going to be the same brightness no matter what manufacturer I use. Right now, I had a 12,000 lumen projector fail in a classroom. I have two projectors side by side. All I had to put in, on a real fast replacement was a 6,000 lumen, half the brightness, right? Except in white situations, you can't really tell the difference in the two projector images. A 12,000 beside a 6,000. And that bothers me. But, when we start looking at detail and contrast ratio, there is a big difference. But, I'm sitting here saying, why aren't the students complaining about the right projector being so much dimmer? And I go in the room and look, and, I can see a difference, yes, but I don't see an issue with being able to get the content that I need off of the screen. Now, it might depend on what subject we were teaching. This is a pharmacy class where there are generally black and white chemistry structures put up on the screen, or pictures of the students at the distant site. That's what they're seeing on that screen. So that might be okay. If we were teaching a pathology course where pink and purple side by side mean different things, I might have an issue with that one. But, I want to know that, the specs are accurate, and they're all measured against the same standard. That's what I want to see, whatever it is. And I've served on some standards committees in the industry, and I've been a reviewer for other standards. And that's the reason we write standards. A standard gives everyone a level playing field when they're talking about their product.
Yeah, it's interesting that this is sort of one manufacturer holding another manufacturer to telling the truth and keeping to a standard, as opposed to other things where we say, well, we had this technology first and you guys are putting it out, and then there's a fight over, well, who's got the actual rights to it. This goes a little deeper, where, listen, you're falsifying what you're saying, and you're out and outright lying.
Yeah, you're putting out a $4,000 projector for 25% of the price of mine, but yours isn't really.
Ernie knocked that one out.
AV, we tend to be a little funny when it comes to standards, but it's like, I feel like there are some out there that have been pretty well established, and that those are the ones that we kind of look to, and it's kind of like, well, at least get those right.
Yeah. And most of these standards generally have a review date. We've changed some of them over the years. I've seen how do you determine the proper image size or font size for different viewing distances. And that has changed as technology's changed, because as you get higher resolution, you can see things a little bit better. So as long as the standards are alive, they're being reviewed, and they have a date that says, this is good through this date, and then it will be updated or renewed.
Well, this has been another excellent conversation, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, Soko. If anyone wants to reach out to you after this episode, how might they do that?
LinkedIn, Joe Sokolowski. Please reach out. I love to nerd out about this stuff.
And how about you, Ernie?
LinkedIn is the best way to get a hold of me.
And Rob? Oh, yeah, right. It's always LinkedIn. And Scott, how about you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm trying out Blue Sky now as an alternate social media platforms. You can find me there as well.
Awesome. Okay. And as for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, on X at Smearin_off_ice, on the HETMA community, and each month here on AVNation's EdTech podcast that can be found on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find other AVNation podcasts like AV Career Mastermind, State of Control, and Women in AV, and more over on avnation.com or .tv. So see you next time.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.